Hi, welcome. My name is Reverend Michelle Hale, and I would like to welcome you to your life recovery program. I know it may sound a little bit funny, but I know for a fact that the principles and the teachings that I have here in this life recovery program work because I myself had to use them to recover my own life, to recover from my own life. I'll tell you a little about myself. I lived a life of regret, fear. I lived a life of feeling that I was less than anybody else, that I was never smart enough. I had feelings of abandonment and resentment, um, and that ultimately led me to ending up being a drug addict for many, many years. And I'm not talking just, the over-the-counter, going to the doctor type drug addict. I'm talking to the point of when I finally decided enough was enough and that I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, that I went through months and months of withdrawals, cold turkey, and it was hell. But it really wasn't much more hell than I had been putting myself through for years by revisiting my past over and over and over, and reliving the pain over and over and over from what others, have done in their own, perceived sickness and their own feelings of self-worth and low self-worth and fear and resentment and passing on mistakes that had been visited upon them, and today I know these things, but then I didn't. Then I used to believe that life happened to me and that I couldn't manifest or co-create my own life. I heard those words, but I didn't know what they meant because I looked around me and my life, ultimately still looked like crap. And I didn't know how to change it. I had read spiritual texts and philosophies and studied different religions for many, many years in search of something to make me feel better about who I was, about being me. And they all teach the same lesson and the same golden rule, but there was something missing inside of me. There was something missing. There was a piece missing that they didn't quite explain for me to grab a hold of that I could apply this into my life. Until, like I said, one day I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I walked into a 12-step recovery program, and it's the best thing I could have done for myself. Best thing I could have done for myself because it taught me of my ego mind. It taught me uh, why I feel and think the way I do. And as I began to listen and learn and apply, and then I began to watch other people, and I started to recognize that this isn't just a condition for people who are in addiction, active addiction. This is a human condition, and that we all suffer from this. And boy, that just blew my mind. And then all of a sudden, everything that I had read on the spiritual level started to make sense to me. Started to make sense to me that the concept of a devil, um, which I do not believe in, there is no evil entity out there grabbing for your soul. It does not exist, except what you create in your own mind. That's where we hold ourselves in hell. That's where we hold ourselves prisoner. Um, I was raped repeatedly by my father. Um, I've been beaten up. I've had guns to my head. I've been homeless. Um, Teenage pregnancy. I've seen, the ugly, and I experienced it to the deepest level that there possibly is. And I sit today happy, joyous, and free. And then I sit today looking back on my past with no anger. And that's amazing. That really is. And so what I would like to share with you is my journey on what it took for me to, 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 to be happy, to have peace inside, to understand what nirvana, the kingdom of heaven, peace and serenity really means, and it's not something that you find outside of yourself. It's not something that some people may be able to discover it in a book, but most of us in today's world, we have a hard time with that. And what it really takes to achieve peace and serenity within you is discovering who you are and where you yourself came from, and who you are and who I am. And this is the undoubted truth of all mankind, is we are spiritual beings having a human existence. And in this existence, sometimes what we experience, we misperceive as pain and suffering. And we take it within us. And in actuality, we tend to crucify ourselves with it over and over and over and over and over again. I know I did for years. And I'm here to tell you that's not what the Creator had in store for us. You know, we came here excited. We came here wanting to live and experience all the wonder and the joy that this existence has to offer, because it does. But we were also given free will. And in that free will was given choice. And that's what free will means. It means I have a choice today. And many of us, like me for many years, I never knew I had a choice. I didn't realize that I could either choose to look at all the negative things that I feel hurt me or I was afraid of or would be taken, whatever. Or I could choose to think differently and respond differently and see differently. I can choose to recognize that this world offers me every day, over and over and over again, beauty and wonder and grace and excitement and a chance to choose again. And that is the blessing. That is the very blessing. And one of the ways um, that I began that journey was I had to admit certain things to myself. And one of those things is that I had to admit was I had become powerless. And then, you know, I was a very egotistical person. I was a very controlling woman. And to admit that was like, you might as well slap me around or whatever. In fact, I'd rather you slap me around than for me to honestly look down inside of me and say, okay, Michelle, you're powerless. What am I powerless over? Well, I'm powerless over people, places, and things. I'm powerless over the government. I am powerless over the weather. At the time, I was powerless over drugs and alcohol. They had me full swing, you know. And then I had to really stop and think about it. And the next thing that they said to me was, well, your life has become unmanageable. Well, in my mind, I was managing just fine. I controlled everybody in my home. I was I was a dictator. I was very much my way, or you'd feel my wrath, and I would manipulate everybody around me, including myself. We tell the biggest lies to ourselves to so many times that we honestly start to believe them, and I believed many of those lies for a long time. And you don't have to do that today, and neither do I. But you have to get real. You know, you have to really get real with yourself. And this first video is all about what you were powerless over and what you actually have power over. And what you honestly have power over is only one thing in this world, and that is you and your life. And that is it. You have no power over your children. God knows I know that. Mine's running amok all the time, but that's their experience. That's what they choose to do. And after a certain age, they don't belong to me anymore. And that's something that I try to control. I wanted to hang on for a long time. I was afraid that if my children grew up and left home, then what would happen to me? Where would my self-worth be? What would my purpose be? Who was I to become if I wasn't the mother? If I wasn't hanging on and catching them every chance instead of allowing them to fall down once in a while and grow. And that was a hard one for me, was to let my son grow, to let him become, to trust that, I did the best that I could, and that he's a man now, and I let him go. And he's doing wonderful all by himself. Imagine that. These are some of the things, though, that we try to control in our minds. We try, and then we spin our wheels, and we feel all of this anxiety, and worry, and fear, and guilt, and shame, and remorse, and resentment, and feelings of not being enough. And they all get twisted and tangled inside of us. And there's the unmanageability. And I didn't know that was unmanageability. I didn't realize that that's what it truly meant. And in those books, when I would read them, and they would talk about peace within. I had a belief in a higher power. I believed that there was a God of the universe. I just didn't know how closely connected I was, and so are you. So one of the things that we've allowed ourselves to do throughout our lives, and we don't realize that we're doing, is we've allowed our outer world to tell us how our inner world should be. And that's not the way it should be. You should allow your inner world to shine. Because we are literally, science has proven it, we are literally made of the same stuff stars are made out of. And it says in one of the wonderful teaching books of our time, which would be the Holy Bible, that we are created in the image and likeness of our Creator. And if that's the truth, and I'm made of the same stuff stars are made of, and so are you, then you are a spirit of divine worth, divine wealth, divine abundance, and divine being. And that is the truth of each and every one of us. And when we get so wrapped up in our heads, and we get so wrapped up in the ego, and we get so wrapped up in what the circumstances outside of us tell us what we should be, we forget who we are. And that's when we become powerless. And that's when our lives start to become unmanageable. And that's when we start looking at all that's happened to us and not how can we change it today. And what can we do today to take steps into expanding into a greater, fuller expansion of ourselves, of that spirit of who we are. And this journey that we're gonna share together here, and you're not alone. I'm gonna be there every step of the way with you, and I want you to leave me your comments, and I will respond to them as quickly as I possibly can. But I will do my very best here to serve you in this growing of who you really are, and allowing your truth to shine, whatever that truth may be. And our truths go as far as our beliefs. And I've gone from believing one thing that I thought, about myself for many, many years, into believing something and knowing something so much better, And so my beliefs about me, about a power greater than me, about the divine spirit, Holy Spirit, Jesus, Buddha, universal creative force, all of it, or it's the same thing, all of it. It doesn't really matter what you choose to call it. But I discovered that, I am connected directly to it through my very existence, through my own innate divine being that I am. I am connected to it. But at some point in our growing up, we start to believe that we're separate from it, and we're not. And when we start believing in the separateness, then we start believing in the pain and the suffering of the world. And we start to choose pain and suffering. And I know it sounds strange, but when something's familiar, whether it's good or bad for us, we'll tend to return to it. And when we believe in the suffering, then the suffering is what we shall do. And that's not what that higher power, that universal creative force wants for us. It wants us to shine as the stars do. It gives us signs each and every night, looking up into the divine sky, the abundance of the stars in the universe that shines back at us, reminding us and saying to us, and trying to help kindle our remembrance within us to shine. Shine as we shine upon you, because you are here to shine, for we are one. We are like you and you are like us. You know, we are all interwovenly connected to each other. But first we have to reconnect to us, to who we are. And we have to connect to that divine innate spirit that we are, that we are in the image and likeness of. And that means that we have to start changing our stories about ourselves. And we need to start maybe allowing ourselves to maybe believe a little bit more, and have allow feelings of love and acceptance of yourself to start to manifest within you. So your homework for today, and yes, there's going to be homework, and it's going to be entirely up to you. You know, you're going to get out of this what you put into it, you know. And if you work it, and if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired with you know, your circumstances, and how you feel, then you'll do this work, and you'll be honest with it. And I'm not going to say it's all going to be easy, you know, but it's been hard so far, right? It's got to get better. I mean, if we're willing to do something different, you know, insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And the one thing that I have learned is, in all those horrible experiences that I had, there was always one common denominator in it, and that was me. And as I realized, as soon as I started changing my thinking about me, my feelings about me, and letting go of things that were no longer necessary, or no longer what I didn't want to tell that story anymore, my life started changing. And, you know, I started experiencing peace and serenity. I started experiencing an amazing, new, wondrous world just building up around me, you know. And you know, I live a life today that if you'd asked me a few years ago, a couple of years ago, would I would tell you no. That's for someone else. It's not for me. And I sit before you today on YouTube. Never thought I'd be doing this. I knew I always wanted to serve, but I had to serve that inner child, that inner me, before I could help anybody else. So your homework, as I said, is I want you to get yourself a spiral notebook, and this will be used for this work and this work only. And keep it with you, or keep it put away. These are things that are for you personally, you know, much like a diary. And what I want you to do is write in that spiral notebook what you're powerless over. You know, and if you happen to be a substance abuser, then write down you're powerless over drugs and alcohol. And if you're not a substance abuser, there's other things that we're powerless over. We like I said, we're powerless over the weather. We're powerless over the government. We're powerless over people, places, and things. What people think about us, what they say about us, you know. And sometimes we can be powerless, or perceive that we're powerless over what we think and say about ourselves. So write down, you know, what you feel that you're powerless over. And then on the other side of that paper, I want you to write out and remind yourself what you do have power over. And that is your thoughts. That are your feelings. You may not feel like it at this moment, but if you work this, it will come. And you will start to understand that you have that choice today. And I also want you to write out how you feel, or where you may feel your life is unmanageable, whether it's internally or outwardly, or however you may see it or feel it. And I want you to write it out. But I also want you to know that in doing this, that it's not to make you feel worse about the way things are, or who you perceive that you are. If anything, this is going to start helping you regain control and power over really are. And it's going to help empower you to do better and great things, because you are worth it, and you are loved. You are loved so much. And I want to thank you for joining me today. And I will be uploading weekly each of the next steps as we go on this journey together. I hope you enjoy your self-discovery, and you know, just know that you're not a mistake. You never have been. You never will be, and that you have purpose. And until I see you again, bright blessings to you. Much love. And please, give me your comments, okay? Have a great